You, I think we are now recording. I'm going to give people one more minute to log in. In the meantime, I'm going to give a thanks to our sponsor, the Futures Unbound Foundation, and go over a little bit of housekeeping. If you look on the bottom of your screen, there's a chat box, and next to it, there's a little double chat box, little double chat balloon, if you will, labeled Q&A. That's for posting questions. After the speakers, I'm going to read questions out of the Q&A chat. I won't see any questions you post in chat, so please make sure any questions you have, you post in the Q&A. The regular chat can be used for networking. Feel free to use that to make contact with other members of the community. Feel free to post your name and affiliation if you want to make contact, and reach out to other members of the community via the chat channel. But I won't see it until after the presentation. So if you have questions you want me to read to the speakers, please post them in Q&A. One technical thing I want to let people know, if you're having a problem because the image of the slide is very small relative to this video of me, that's a local setting on your Zoom, your local Zoom controls. And the way to control that is to use the Zoom swap video and share screen command. And you get to that different ways depending on the mode you're in. If you're in full screen mode, there's a little button in the upper right of the smaller window. And if you press that, you'll get to swap the image of the slide and the image of the speaker. So you can make the slides bigger. If you're in the window mode, in the upper right, there'll be a button with a label view, and pressing that will get you the command swap video and share screen. And you can do the same thing, make the image of the slides bigger. So with that in mind, I'm going to give a little bit of context here. I'm not going to go speak again about, the importance of the climate crisis and the importance of reducing carbon dioxide and all. We've talked about that lots in the previous webinars. There's a saying, when you're in a hole, the first thing to do is stop digging. And with respect to natural gas appliances, what that means with respect to the built environment is, in a new building, you probably shouldn't build new buildings that still require natural gas appliances. And what that means with respect to building codes is that many communities, both in California and across the country, are adopting what are called REACH codes. That means a building code that goes beyond the minimum requirements of the state building code. So here on the screen is an example of a report by the staff to the City Council of Solana Beach about adopting a REACH code in Solana Beach for what they call building electrification, meaning all new buildings should have only electrical appliances. But the issue that keeps coming up in Solana Beach and in many other communities that have tried to adopt REACH codes is, what about cooking appliances? So if you read the fine print in the report to the Solana Beach City Council, it says natural gas can be used for cooking appliances and also fireplaces. And then it gets on to, that was for residential. And then it gets on, later on, they talk about commercial. They say commercial cooking may be exempted. So in adopting REACH codes, they're pretty clear that they wanted to have all the other appliances, the heat, the hot water, should be electric. And we've talked in previous webinars about electric heat pumps, electric hot water. But there seems to be a lot of resistance to going with electric cooking. And the reason is that a lot of owners of restaurants are just absolutely convinced they can't exist if they can't have gas cooking appliances. And even in residences, there's lots of people who sort of fancy themselves gourmet chefs or just believe that gas is the only way to cook. And even if they had all other appliances electric, they feel they have to have a gas range. And that kind of loses the goal of having an all electric building, because it loses the cost savings of not having to run gas into the building. And it loses the advantage of not having a gas line that can potentially leak, because natural gas not only, of course, releases carbon dioxide when it burns, but all natural gas lines leak to some extent. And the leakage of natural gas, since natural gas is many times worse greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide, is itself a major contributor to global warming. So what we're going to do today, we have two speakers who are going to explain that this idea that you can't cook without natural gas is actually a fallacy. And it's actually better to have induction ranges that should work perfectly well. So our first speaker is Chef Christopher Galarza, who is a world-renowned chef. He's one of the country's foremost experts in commercial electric kitchens and has made a career after having successfully converted several kitchens to all electric, and is now a consultant, works all over the country, helping kitchens become all electric. And I'm going to turn it over to him, and he's going to explain why commercial kitchens work perfectly well without that. So, Chris, go for it.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. Share my screen right now. There we go. All right. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Chef Chris Galarza. I am the founder and culinary sustainability consultant for Forward Dining Solutions. I'm here to talk to you guys about sustainable kitchens and how induction technology works within them. So first and foremost, what is Forward Dining Solutions? So we sustainably build kitchens of the future, and that means, and how we do that is by leveraging, my experience as a chef who've worked in all facets of dining, from 5-star, 5-diamond resorts all the way down to small-scale restaurants. We're the only firm with real-world working knowledge of electric kitchens, because I myself ran my own for the last 5 or 6 years. We're experienced with working with multidisciplinary teams to achieve their sustainability goals. And now we partnered with a firm that allows us to offer a full suite of kitchen design services, from helping with financing all the way down to trainings, because our goal is to not just build these kitchens and walk away, but it's to make sure that these kitchens are set up in a way that can prosper for decades and years to come. So let's start off with a little video. And I want you to imagine what the world would be like if electrification wasn't a thing, if the things that we took for granted were all gas.
You're sharing, you're not sharing right now.
I'm not sharing
Chris.
right now, but
No.
it's showing that I'm sharing on my screen.
Let's see if I can't find it.
I see it, Jose.
Ah, I got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, cool. All right, so let's go on. So I get that may seem a little silly to most people, but it's just to highlight that when we're talking about electrification, we're talking about specifically in the kitchen, most things in the kitchen are already electric. No one's ever used their gas powered microwave or blender. All we're talking about is really just taking it to the next step by just replacing a couple more pieces. So let's start by talking about what the real world health considerations are. So first and foremost, what are the byproducts of burning natural gas? Carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, sulfur dioxide, and other particulates like soot and smoke. But we're going to focus right now on carbon monoxide because those are what people have sensors for in their homes, like alarms to let them know that there is a contamination. So carbon monoxide can be found in tobacco smoke, motor vehicles, gas-fired water heaters and burn furnaces or broilers, fireplaces, wood stoves, but we're primarily going to focus on gas stoves and ovens. Now, carbon monoxide is an odorless, colorless toxin. Typical outdoor concentration is anywhere from 0.03 to 2.5 parts per million. And the federal standard says that it cannot exceed 9 parts per million. So after that, everyone's inside until they find out where the contamination is coming from. But in a kitchen, when you're burning natural gas to cook with, it's not uncommon for it to far exceed 200 parts per million. And those are the real numbers that we need to focus on, because the symptoms are nausea, vomiting, headache, lightheadedness, and complications are permanent brain damage, cardiac damage, and death. So when we're talking about cooking with natural gas, we're talking about exposing those who are vulnerable, those with health conditions, those who are elderly, those who are young. And now we need to include those who are survivors of COVID-19. As we know, it attacked the lungs and left people with severely diminished lung capacities. So let's talk about induction cooking. What is induction cooking? Well, I'll tell you what it's not. It's not gas, obviously. It's not these awful coils, or what I call coils 2.0 radiant, because those convert electrical energy and turn them into heat. And induction doesn't do that. Induction cooks with electromagnetic current. So it's a safer and quicker way of cooking. It's an easy way to meet your sustainability goals, as well as save yourself some money. And talked about electromagnetic currents. So let's delve deeper on that. So first off, you need to start with a Ferris pan. So like a pan that's attracted to a magnet. And what you do when you turn it on is that it creates an induction, a high frequency alternating magnetic field that generates a friction between the metal to excite the molecules and make it get hot. So the easiest way to think about that is imagine a microwave, right? A microwave uses these tiny little waves to excite the water molecules within the food. So on a molecular level, you're creating heat from the inside out. So you're heating your food from the inside out. So what this does, it turns these little free electrons in the pans and it gets them working at such a high rate of speed that it creates the friction and in turn makes the pan hot. So there are no heating elements in the unit itself, so therefore there's nothing to burn on or anything like that. The pan itself becomes the heating element. So let's talk about gas versus electric. So when working with gas, at best, and I want to stress this, at best, and a gas range is 50% efficient, which means you need 2 kilowatts of energy to create 1 kilobtu of heat, which means British thermal units. And that being said, you can cook 38.6 pounds of food per hour. And you also have the added benefit of having to take it apart and use your elbow grease to clean it. It could also cause burns or fires, and that's not good for anybody. But induction technology is 90% efficient. And if all things are the same, you can cook 70.9 pounds of food per hour, which is nearly double that of gas. It's easier to clean and it's safer to use. So pros and cons. So obviously people focus on the first cost, initial cost. It scares a lot of people away because they think it's much more expensive. It really isn't, but that's for another conversation. You'll maybe compatible cookware. Maybe your pans are those cheap aluminum that aren't magnetic. And also the electrical capacity, the retrofit hurdle. Maybe you have to upgrade your panels. But what the pros are is they're very high efficiency, 80 to 93%, as opposed to 35 to 50% with gas. It heats up really quickly. There's precise temperature adjustments. There's no idling equipment, so it only works when you need it to work. No combustion, so none of those byproducts that we talked about. And there's a dramatic improvement of thermal comfort because there's no heat being burnt off and sent into your home. See, when we talk about the 35 to 50% efficiency, we talk about 35% of the gas that's burnt is actually being used to heat your pans. The rest is just there to heat up your home and for you to breathe in those awful byproducts. And also it extends the pots and pans, like the life of the pots and pans. So no more of these warped pans or black bottom pans. These pans stay pristine. So your kitchen, your equipment, they all look like they're brand new. So what's life in an electric kitchen like? So I can tell you it's comfortable. As you can see, this is a picture of the kitchen I ran for. It's open, so there's no room for arguments or anything like that. And because people are more comfortable, they tend to be happier. And people can sense when someone's not in a good mood. So it's very important that you stay in a good mood, because we're in the hospitality industry. We're here to provide a service. We're here to provide an experience. So when we're working in an all electric space, it's one that's comfortable. It's one that allows people to feel good. It's one that allows people to breathe better air. And because of that, we have much better, guest facing interaction, as opposed to, when someone's hot, upset, uncomfortable, just doesn't exist. So let's talk about some myth busting. So first and foremost, the one that I found the most, we'll say, interesting is induction is dangerous for people with pacemakers and implants. The reality is that the electromagnetic field that's generated is very low. We're talking 2 to 3 inches at best. That's where the majority of it is. So gas or electric, I would say, don't lay down on the equipment. If your staff is laying on the equipment, then that's a whole other conversation to have. So that shouldn't really matter. But it was also tested by the American Heart Association. They say it's perfectly safe. So that myth busted. Another one is that the glass surfaces will shatter and warp. The reality is that we use tempered ceramic glass, not tempered glass. And now the difference is that tempered ceramic glass is very strong and won't warp. Tempered glass can only handle temperatures up to 600 degrees Fahrenheit. Tempered ceramic glass can handle temperatures far exceeding 1400 degrees Fahrenheit, which I don't know a single home cook or chef that's getting their ranges that hot. And also, that picture is my real cooktop that we had for 5 years, not a scratch on it. It's still shiny, brand new. You can see the tiles in the back. Like, these things are meant to last. The truth of induction is that it's more powerful and it gives way more controls to the chef. It's safer to use, it's easier to clean. It's going to save you money and energy over time. Now, I'd be remiss if I came on here as a chef and didn't give my ideas for best practices. So first and foremost, I would say try to compost. Start your own or create a neighborhood system. Things you would need is greens like grass clipping, vegetable waste, fruit scraps, weeds, coffee grounds, and filters. Food leftovers like eggshells, nut shells, tea bags, so long as you take the time to take that metal staple out, if your tea bag does have that. Brown material like dead leaves, wood chips, twigs, and fireplace ash, as well as recyclable packaging material like shredded newspapers, cardboard, and paper. You could also donate your compost. The United Nations estimates that if farmers and livestock owners fed their animals on legally permissible food waste, enough grain would be liberated to feed an extra 3 billion people worldwide. That's nearly half the population of the planet. So it's very important that we use our waste properly. And you can go to the USDA website and find out how to do that. But I give you 3 tips. First, make stock. Now, what's stock? A stock is the foundation of all soups and sauces. Stock is what you use to cook with. Really, it's the bedrock of everything that we do. It's healthier for you, and making your own stock, you can control the process. So good in, good out, high quality ingredients, and it also allows you to reduce the sodium that you're taking in. And also, when making a stock, aromatics are key. If you can smell it and it smells good, use it. I don't like putting things like eggplant or squash or broccoli in there. I find it just muddies down the flavor and it muddies down the stock. I like a nice clean stock that smells really good. So think about it. If you're making a soup and the stock you're putting in already smells like fresh vegetables or roasted veggies, it's going to taste that much better, because because believe it or not, you taste more with your nose than you do with your palate. Another thing you could do with your waste is eat it. You can pickle it for relishes, salads, or snacks. You can powder it, like you can take the skins off the garlic, dry it up, grind it up, and you got garlic powder. I did that with black garlic once. You could also infuse it, infuse sugars, infuse salts, creams for baking. Now, you can drink it with infused waters, or my personal favorite, make a cocktail. There's 2 ways you can do that. You can infuse it by putting the ingredients into say your vodka, or make a simple syrup out of it. Now, if you've noticed, there's been a picture there on the side. That was done intentionally because I wanted you guys to see what people traditionally throw away. Now, as a chef, the best advice I was ever given was, if you want to know where your cost is going, look in your trash. And when you train yourself to look into your trash can, you see orange rinds that are great in old fashioned, can be, used in creams, can be turned into a marmalade. You see bok choy that can be turned into kimchi or turned into some sort of slaw. You see carrots that can be pickled and turned into a relish for, say, a beautiful braised lamb dish. There's a lot of things you can do with your waste. Just take the time to look into your trash. And with that being said, I want to thank everybody for being here. I love coming on, and what I say is spreading the gospel on induction cooking. So I'll leave my information down below. Thank you all. Can't wait to have the Q&A session.
Thank you, Chris. Appreciate that very much. That was
Thank
very
you.
inspirational.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Charlie Trujillo, who's a recent graduate and is a fellow of the San Diego Green Building Council. The Green Building Council has been very active in promoting the REACH codes. And among other things, it's been lending people portable induction cooktops so they can experience induction cooking. And he's here to tell us about the Green Building Council's programs and its work on induction cooking. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Charlie to talk about induction cooking for home chefs. So Charlie.
Awesome. Thank you, Jose, and thank you for the Center of Community Energy for allowing me to speak in front of everybody. Well, virtually in front of everybody. While I go ahead and pull up my slides, I just want to preface that, just like Jose mentioned, my presentation is going to be more focused on the residential sector as opposed to commercial kitchens. Can everybody see my slides just fine and hear me just fine? Otherwise, I will adjust if needed.
Yes.
Yes. Okay, perfect. So awesome. So yeah, just like Jose mentioned, my name is Charlie Trujillo. I'm a fellow for the San Diego Green Building Council, and I'm here presenting on their behalf, as well as the California Climate Action Corps, which is a division of the AmeriCorps, which seeks to bring local programs that enhance both human health and the environmental health. And there is going to be some overlap between my presentation and Chris's. So I'm going to actually just skip some stuff just so I can allocate my time to other slides. And since Chris did such a good job explaining how induction cooktop works, I pretty much don't need to explain anything on this slide. I will, however, add that there are a lot of videos online that you can check out. And I'll also actually share a link to a website later on in the presentation. But there's videos where you can see where they literally put money next to their induction cooktop pan while they're cooking, and the money doesn't burn. And I don't know about anybody else, but I can find it fascinating that people are literally willing to put money where their mouth is, almost literally. But I actually saw a question related to this on the chat, so hopefully I can address that right now. But there are different kinds of induction cookware or appliances, and I just want to kind of go briefly over the three main ones, just so you could see, if you're thinking about maybe replacing your appliance, which one would be the best one for you. But first we have the portable one, the one on the far left. I mean, the name explains it pretty well. It's portable. So you would take it out when you would use it and then just put it away when you don't need it anymore. And I guess you could say the main benefit of this is that if you're in an apartment or somewhere where you have limited counter space, you don't have to sacrifice counter space to be able to use an induction cooktop. But also if you're in a situation where you're not able to make the decision to replace a cooktop, this is a great alternative. Some downsides of this is that most of them are either single element or dual element, which I guess in gas terms would be 1 or 2 burners. So it would, you wouldn't have multiple things going, but it's a very flexible option for those that aren't able to make decisions. Next up, we have the cooktop. So what's convenient about these is that a lot of these are made to size to be able to replace current cooktops. So if you currently have a gas cooktop and you replace it, you will most likely be able to find an induction cooktop that can fit exactly where your previous cooktop was. So, it'll make the transition easier and you don't have to make additional cuts. I don't know about everybody else, but I think this is the most appealing one at all. It's the sleekest. It just looks far more appealing than the other ones. And then I believe the question in the Q&A that I saw asked, somebody had an oven and a cooktop. There are combos, just induction ranges. So on top, you would have an induction cooktop, just like you would in the middle picture. But down underneath, what you would have is, depending on the brand, depending on the range, there's different options. There's a convection oven underneath, electric, of course, not gas. That'll defeat the whole purpose. But there's also an option to get like an air fryer underneath. So just whatever your needs are, there's more likely an option for that. The thing is, however, unfortunately right now, if you walk into a store, let's say you walk into a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a Sears, if those are still around, you will most likely find mostly gas and electric appliances as the main options. However, these companies do offer online alternatives where you could have them shipped to the store, shipped to your home. What I've found is that most of the stuff that you can find in stores, there are some local stores, like there's Perch, and there's several other stores where you could walk in and see the actual induction cooktops in showrooms. But what I've noticed is that most of that stuff is tailored to a higher end customer. So you usually find higher priced items in store because, of course, it's a showroom. They want to show you the best that they have, and which ends up being the most expensive. But there are definitely a lot of options online, and there's some mom and pop shops that also carry induction cooktops, which is, I will admit, it's hard to find. But there are definitely some more accessible options that you can find. Down below, there are some big name brands that make induction cooktops. I just wanted to put those there so you can see that companies are investing in induction cooktop technology. And then, just as it gets more popular, it'll be more accessible, and then you'll start to see it more in physical stores. And then this one, I'll go briefly over as well. Just like Chef Chris mentioned, some benefits of induction cooktops are faster, more precise cooking temperatures. If you're making a transition between gas and induction, there is going to be a learning curve, because just as the cook time is way faster, you got to have your food prep ahead of time. You can't be doing it like you normally would with gas. Otherwise, you're going to end up with a lot of burnt food, which is, if you're making a transition, it's expected. So that don't be put down just by if you get a lot of burnt food. But also indoor air pollution is also an issue because you're burning natural gas, which leads to carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide, amongst other pollutants. And then it's more energy efficient and has a lower carbon footprint on the environment. But in the next slides, I'll just go over more in detail from a residential point of view. So first up, I'd like to talk about the indoor air quality. And just as Chef Chris mentioned, the elderly, those with previous conditions, and children are most likely to be affected. And I'm sure you're tired of hearing this through the COVID times, but it's true. The effects of indoor air quality are not equally distributed. And I want to just focus real quickly on how it affects children the most. And well, it affects the children the most because of, I want to bring up 3 points. The first being that children are far more active than adults. They're usually just running around playing with their toys, just horse playing pretty much. And because of that, they have a higher rate of breathing, which obviously they're breathing in more air, and which, one breath, I guess you can see isn't that catastrophic, but if it's continually being exposed to large amounts of breaths, the effects start to add up, and then they could lead to grave consequences. Also, because they are still developing, it's like, I guess you could almost say like the equivalent of having a child smoke. That's something you don't want. So you don't want them smoking, you don't want them breathing in bad air. And then let's see, also because they're smaller, their lungs are obviously smaller as well. So their surface to volume ratio of their lungs is higher. So a breath of air, it's more detrimental to them as a breath of air would be to a full-grown adult. So, making a switch to induction cooking as opposed to gas will behoove parents as well, because they'll be putting the safety of their children Awesome. So this breakdown shows the greenhouse gas emissions of different sectors, specifically here in California. Buildings in general, about 25% of the emissions in California, but residential buildings themselves are 12%. So, it's not, there's larger ones, transportation and industry, but obviously 12% of a large number is still a large number. So that just shows the opportunity we have here. Of course, induction cooking isn't the solution, but it is a good step forward. And so this shows the trend of what we need to do to achieve a goal of being 100% or reducing our emissions by 2045. And as you can see, we are way above where we need to be. That dotted steep line you see down there, that's the track we need to be on. And how do we do that? We have to electrify buildings. This here, the yellow dot lines, the yellow slashes and the yellow bars, those are natural gas. So, this shows here, we can't get to that 2050 goal if we don't electrify buildings. We have to completely phase out natural gas. So, yeah. Awesome. And then also, I just wanted to share with you guys a program that is administered by the San Diego Green Building Council on induction cooktops. Jose mentioned it briefly, but I want to go more in detail on it. So the program is called the Electric Home Cooktop Program. And what it does is we pretty much loan out induction cooktops to anybody who is interested. There are absolutely no fees or prices to be able to rent out the cooktop. The duration of the cooktop is for 3 weeks. So you'd be getting a good amount of time to be able to experience it. And you don't have to be a chef or like a very good home cook to be able to check one out. It's open to anybody who's interested. And then the reason we do this is to be able to, first of all, get people familiar with induction cooktop, because we understand if you go into an appliance store and you've never used induction cooking before, you are probably not going to consider induction without any previous experience. So it's, helping to get people in the door, get their foot in the door and, experience induction cooking for the first time. But also just to, share the benefits of induction cooking. Like I mentioned earlier, like indoor air quality is superior. And the energy efficiency, depending on, the energy efficiency and carbon footprint depend on where you source your electricity, obviously. If you source it from a coal plant as opposed to renewable energy source, it's obviously going to be different. But what's included in the kit that you would check out? So you would obviously get the cooktop. So this is a portable cooktop, just as I mentioned earlier. If I remember correctly, it's the Duxtop 9100. But along with the cooktop, we would also get a pan that's compatible, just in case if you don't have a compatible pan or cookware. But we'd also include a magnet. So the way you'd be able to determine, just as Chef Chris mentioned earlier, if your cookware is compatible with an induction cooktop, is if you stick a magnet on your power pan, and if it sticks, then it works. If it doesn't stick, then it doesn't work. It's pretty simple. But you would also get the manual instructions on how to use the cooktop. And currently we have 3 pickup locations in the San Diego area. So there's one in the central San Diego, there's a couple up north, one in Solana Beach and one in Carlsbad. We are currently in the process of expanding the program to make it more accessible to both East and South counties, just because we understand that people may not be willing to drive all the way up north or even to central San Diego, or maybe not able to drive that far. So we want to make this program as accessible and as equitable to everybody in the San Diego County. So, we'll release more information on when that is occurring. And this is just a screenshot of what our website looks like. So on this website, we also have a resources tab. There, we have linked several studies, videos, just information that you might find useful. Just on building electrification, just studies on how induction cooking affects human health, and videos of people cooking with induction cooktops. And they're all pretty interesting. You get to see pretty cool dishes being made, but also like when you see the chef cooking with induction cooktops, you could tell they really enjoy it. I think there's a video linked on there that has it's a pretty cool induction cooktop. It's one of those in-counter ones. The second one, I don't know if you remember, there was the one in the middle, but it also had a ventilation, a ventilator, I guess you could say, in the actual cooktop. So That's another, I guess, pro. You can find induction cooktops with ventilation in the actual cooktop, so you don't have to have it above. There may be some very tall people that walk into those. I think that video actually mentions that her husband walked into those apparently a lot, so that was an issue for them. But there's a lot of really cool technology coming out with induction cooktops. This website also allows you to reserve the cooktop. If you go in there, you could select your pickup location, and then it'll show you the dates where the cooktops are available for picking up. If it's available, it will be on the website. If it's fully booked, it'll disappear. And then I also want to just briefly thank all our sponsors and partners that are able to make this program a success and be able to run the program. Without the support of other like-minded organizations in the San Diego region, it'd be very hard to implement this. And yeah, the San Diego Green Building Council is very lucky and fortunate to be able to work with these other great orgs. And then I just wanted to put that up there one more time because it has the website on there, is ehomecooktops.com. I'll also just put it in the chat after this, just so you guys can have it all readily accessible. I'll also throw my email down in the chat, just in case if you have any questions on the program or just any questions, you can just shoot me an email. But yeah, that pretty much culminates my presentation, and I'll hand it back off to Jose for the Q&A.
Well, thank you, Charlie, and I really congratulate you on joining a very good organization and doing something to make a difference. I'm going to bring up our final slide here and open it up for questions now. I will say we will put on the Central Community Entities website links to your program, so everybody can find it there if they didn't catch it. So I'm going to start in with the questions. I just want to remind everybody, if you have any questions, put it into the Q&A chat so I can see it, because I won't see questions in the regular chat. So to start with Q&A, Rosanna Francescato writes, I want to make the switch to an induction cooktop. We have separate oven and cooktop. I'm a bit stumped about which one to get. When I look at reviews from actual customers or the ones rated highly in consumer reports, there always seem to be some people saying they just stopped working after a while. What advice do you have on how to select the right induction cooktop? So our speakers, you want to make yourselves appear and let's have a panel discussion here.
Hi there, back again. So I would say if you're cooking, I would leave the home answers to Charlie, but if you're cooking induction in a commercial setting, I would say they're really like the big three that I talk about, and Cooktech, Garland, and blanking on their name. It doesn't really matter. Like those two are really, really good. And Rationale is the third one. So those are the three that I always say, like, definitely spend the money. The ones that are cheaper tend to be cheaper. Like I would say, if you're going to spend the money to build a kitchen, if you're going to spend the money to put in something that's going to be the focal point of your space, I would say spend the money. Make sure it's a good unit. So don't buy cheap. That's my my 2 cents, because you could always recoup those costs in the long term. The ROI on induction technology is fantastic.
Charlie, do you want to put anything on brands or where to look?
Yeah, not necessarily on the brands. By reading the question, it looks like it says that the cooktop and the oven are separate. So honestly, it depends on what you're looking for as well, but there is that range option that has the cooktop on top of the oven. So it'd probably be better to just get one that has both already in it. But since you have them both separately right now, it's probably going to require some tampering with the counters to be able to get them both to fit in the same slot, as opposed to being separate. For that, I usually recommend, it used to be called, what was it called? It was called Red Beacon. And it was a program where you could type in your project and you would get matched with, contractors in your area that are having background check, they have the licenses, and they have, you know, you'd be able to see the reviews and chat with them before you'd select them. But I recently found out that they were actually bought out about a year ago by the Home Depot, and now they are rebranded under the Home Depot name. And I believe it's called Home Depot Referral, Per Referral, I believe. You could probably just Google Red Beacon and the Home Depot website comes out. That's how I found out that they were bought out. Just because you are going to have some work just to be able to get them both into the same unit as opposed to separate units. But yeah, and then I also agree with what Chef Chris said. You definitely want to get an appliance that is built to last. That's not going to go bad in a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you pretty much just, I don't know. It sounds awkward to say, but you pretty much get what you pay for.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's exactly right.
All right. Tom Abrams writes, I love my induction cooktop at home. Used a plug-in hob for 2 years before switching to full-size units. For commercial kitchens, are there any pieces of kitchen equipment that are more difficult to convert?
I would say the only real hurdle when converting a commercial kitchen is getting the chef on board. We chefs are creatures of habit, and we are as stubborn as can be. So it's all about, not just trying to say, you're doing bad for the environment, because most chefs don't really care. Like what they care about is their immediate future. What's going to happen to their line? What's going to happen to their service? So if you show them how much cooler their line is going to be, if you show them how much more efficient it's going to operate, how much faster it can work, how much more they can make, then they're on board. So I would say most equipment is designed to be one-to-one swaps. Like if you were to take out your 6-burner gas range, you could probably slide an induction range right in there, no problem. So there's really no real hurdle short of the human element and the retrofit hurdle, if there is one.
Okay, so humans are the hardest equipment to convert.
Yeah, they are.
Okay. Courtney Ransom asks, my gas cooktop makes my kitchen toasty. When an electric one be less warm, and insightly asks, and make my AC bill go down in the summer. I'm going to take that one as an efficiency expert. That's very insightful. Chris made the point that a gas range is only about 50% efficient. The other 50% of the heat means it's escaping into the room. And so the answer is yes. A gas cooktop was heating the kitchen with all that wasted energy. And as Courtney correctly observes, that must mean that in the summer, the air conditioning is running extra to pump out that heat. In general, that's a significant issue with any device that wastes heat. That's true of lighting also. A LED light bulb, which makes more light relative to the amount of energy it consumes, not only saves energy with the making more light for less energy, it also means less energy is wasted pumping that wasted heat out of the building. So yes, if you've been relying on the range to heat your house, you're going to have to find another way to heat the house in the winter. But it does mean a significant savings in air conditioning, because you'll not only cook with less energy, you use less energy to pump the wasted heat out of the house. I don't know if anybody wants to add to that.
Yeah, I would also say, we're talking here about replacing gas with electric, but I always akin it to throwing a pebble into a lake. You may have thrown that pebble into a lake, but what are the ripple effects? So like if you're using your AC less, to use that as an example, what harmful byproducts from using your air conditioning are you not putting into the atmosphere? So there's all of those cascading effects that a lot of people don't even think about. So great question.
Victoria Tenbrick asks an important question. Does the pan have to be perfectly flat? In other words, not warped?
Yes. Absolutely yes. So when using gas, it will warp your pan. And if it's not flat, it can cause issues with the unit as far as like how it's heating, if it's not heating evenly. And then over time, you could do damage to that that induction range. So I would say make sure it's flat. You know, it may be an opportunity to say, hey, screw it, why don't we go get some nice pans? But cast iron isn't going to warp on you. So if you're using cast iron already, so you're good to go.
Okay. Drew Schultz asks,
My man,
with the
Drew.
electric home cooktop program, would a chef be available for in-home training be beneficial?
Well, our cooktop program isn't just there just yet. Usually the training that you would require from gas to induction cooktop is the timing. Just because it is far more efficient and it's quicker to cook on there, you have to be more cautious of how long you leave your food on there. That might be something interesting to possibly integrate into the program. So we'll look into that. That's a pretty good point. But yeah, usually it's just the timing. It's usually most people are able to do it on their own, just by pretty much trial and error, leading to burnt food. But that's usually the most that there is to the learning curve, I guess, just the timing.
I will say that if it's a commercial kitchen looking to do it, I think that's Chef Galarza's business, is to train commercial kitchens, right?
Yeah, Drew is an incredible ally. He runs Clover Culinary, and he has been training himself to understand and learn all about this stuff. And he's in the area. So if you need to partner with somebody in the area to train, Drew's the man. And I'd be happy to help in any way else I can.
I haven't searched, but I would think that if you went on the internet, you'd find videos about how to do this.
Yeah, I would also argue with Drew and saying that it is beneficial to have a chef train. I mean, not to scare people away, but like I also think that if you want this technology to work well and to work for a long period of time, it's best to have someone in there that knows how to use it. Trial and error is cool for a lot of stuff, but if that unit goes down, you don't want to pay to get it fixed. That's just me.
Okay. Robert Carr asks, are there any induction cooktops that are 120 volts? He says that most of the ones he's seen are 240 volts.
Yeah, actually, yeah. My Duxtop portable is a 120 volt. I would say most portable induction cooktops will be 120 volt. 240, you're looking at it like a full range, like a 4-6 burner, if you will, burner. So yeah, there are.
So the drop-in ones would tend to be 240, but the portables would be 120.
Correct. Yeah, because there's a higher load needed to operate those.
Okay.
Yeah, the Duxtop one that the San Diego Green Building Council owns, it's 120 volt as well. Mostly because it's a single element as opposed to like the cooktops and the range that have multiple elements on there, which increases the demand for energy.
Okay. Juan Zamoro asks, what percentage of people are using induction cooking in residential or in commercial cooking? Do you have any idea where we are today?
So today I'd say in commercial, very low. You'll see your pastry chefs having the occasional induction hob for their sugar work and stuff like that because it's convenient. You'll see a lot of high level restaurants like the French Laundry and people like that do all electric kitchens because they found it's just a lot. Like I said, control is key. But for the most part, the overwhelming majority of American chefs don't know much about induction at all, which I think is pretty awful considering that our brothers and sisters overseas, Asia, Australia, Europe, they're 20, 30 years ahead of us. This has been around for a long time. This isn't new. The fact of the matter is that we have had our head in the sand for so long. So we're trying to keep up. Well, I mean, we're trying to catch up. And I sit on an advisory board for culinary school here in Pittsburgh. And I talk to these culinary school students who are, excited to get out there and go work for this chef, go work for that chef, and maybe travel to France and work at a 3 Michelin star restaurant. And I'm looking at them going like, how are you going to get this job if you don't even know how to work the equipment? So we're doing a disservice to our culinarians. And if you're into competition as a competing chef, if you're competing overseas, if you're competing internationally, it's all electric. So now you're way behind the 8 ball. So yeah, we need like the commercial cooking aspect, we need to catch up big time.
Interesting. We have a question from somebody who's interestingly anonymous, who says, my city's electrification ordinance was heavily fought specifically by Asian restaurants, claiming that induction will prevent them from achieving the specific char needed for their signature dishes. Is induction compatible with this style of cooking? If so, how can these restaurants be convinced to be open to the switch? How can the switch to induction be culturally inclusive? Interesting.
So that is a great question. And I was just in a meeting yesterday, coincidentally enough, with Drew Schultz as well, where we were meeting with someone else who's in the chat about induction walks, and they've created this induction walk that is one-to-one comparable to gas powered walks. And a lot of things that you don't know about induction walks is that they use 11,000 gallons of water a minute to keep the wok, cool, not to overheat that piece, which means that translates to nearly 2 million gallons of water a year. So Jade Range has developed an induction wok that will completely revolutionize that. See, the thing is, when there is pushback against induction technology, when there is pushback against what's happening, a lot of times what they do is they give insight as to why that they don't want to make this change. And if it's something significant like wok cooking, they will figure it out. These companies are going to figure it out because they want into this market. So let it work for us. What do you want them to figure out? Tandoor cooking, that's done. Wok cooking, that's done. There's so much out there that is already done. It just takes a little bit of research, and then you'd be surprised on what you'd find. Now, what they talked about with the Asian cuisine, they talked about called wok hei, which is getting your wok hot enough where the closer you get to the center, the hotter it is. That's where the searing, the charring is done. And as you go up the sides, they'll push the food up to the side, so there's different temperatures going up, so it would cook at different levels. So you can absolutely do that with induction woks. They're coming out. They're here. A lot of portable ones, say by, again, CookTech is already out there. So just do a little bit of research. You'd be surprised.
I think I'd encourage our anonymous attendee to directly get in touch with Chef Galarza and
Please
follow up on this.
Yeah, I'll put my email in the chat.
Okay, continuing. Tim Laidman writes, can you use induction for a griddle, either with a flat piece of iron over the burner, or is there an option for a built-in unit?
Absolutely, yes. My induction flat top was one of my favorite pieces of equipment. You can control it to the degree that you want it at, which as a chef is beautiful. So if I were to tell my chef, hey, I need you to go sear that piece of flank steak on the flat top, on a gas flat top, they go sear it, whatever. And sometimes it's hotter than others. It doesn't matter, right? There's hot spots. But in an induction, I can say, hey, I go sear that piece of flank steak at exactly 450 degrees Fahrenheit for 3 minutes on each side. Now it's going to be consistent every single time. So yeah, you could get like a cast iron, flat piece to go over your induction griddle. But I would say spend the money, get yourself an induction flat top. They're incredible. I just recently saw one that has half like those grooves, so you can have like the hash marks. They're awesome, and they're so much easier to clean than their gas counterparts. There's no need for degreaser or grill bricks or anything like that. Hot soapy water, everything comes off. Beautiful mirror finish.
Okay, next question. Joyce Raffo asks, are the requirements for ventilation reduced to induction cooktop? And actually, I'm going to add to that because I know that in a commercial setting, there's not only ventilation requirements, but there's fire suppression requirements. And how do those change in a commercial setting with an induction range?
So in commercial, I would say it all depends on municipality. I know here in Pittsburgh, it doesn't change at all, because here in Pittsburgh, any stationary piece of equipment has to be under a hood, if the primary focus of that piece of equipment is to cook. So it doesn't matter. You have to have the Ansel system and stuff like that. But where you can get around it is ventless technology. There are ventless technologies that are incredible, really incredible. I was down checking out. I feel like I'm a poster child right now for Cook Tech. I was just checking out Cook Tech stuff a few weeks ago, and Dave Shave is in the chat now. But yeah, they have this whole suite of like this catalog of ventless technology, and I'm not going to spoil it because I know that there's some stuff that they're working on with some pretty famous people. If he wants to talk about it, he can give me permission in the chat. Wink, wink. But there are fryers, there are ovens, they're like teppanyaki flat tops that are completely ventless and ready to go. Like there's so much that they have available for this ventless technology. It can really honestly change the face of how we view or open up restaurants, because now it no longer has to be a space that is restaurant ready. You know, you can go to real estate and go, I really love that corner lot, but there's no infrastructure for a restaurant. But if all your equipment's ventless, you can now open up a restaurant literally anywhere. It's really going to change the game.
Yeah. If I could add a little bit to that question from a residential sector, just because I have had people ask, you know, if you have an induction cooktop, obviously I'm not burning natural gas. I don't have this carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide that are being emitted from burning the gas. Do I still have to have ventilation? And the answer is absolutely yes. You still need ventilation, just because when you're cooking, the water vapor and the particles that are resulting from the reactions of cooking, they still are being emitted to into the atmosphere, into your home. And you know, it's not as much as, you know, also additionally burning natural gas, but you still absolutely need ventilation. Just like Chris mentioned, there's like ventless technology coming out, and it's all super cool. I would definitely recommend checking out ventless induction cooktops. I don't know, the first time also I was like pretty awesome. Like you could see the smoke like just all on like, what is it, like a 3-inch diameter?
Wild.
Yeah, I was like, what?
It's so cool.
Seems more efficient than the range hood.
I will also say, check out Drew Schultz's LinkedIn profile, because he did just yesterday post about filing for extensions and all good information on there. So definitely go check it out.
Okay, we're running out of time, so I'm going to try to quickly go through the questions here. Skipping ahead, Jan Samaro asks, what is the estimated cost difference between gas and induction cooking equipment, and how long does it take to get your ROI?
That's a great question. Short answer, it depends. It depends on how efficiently you use it. Depends on how you structure your restaurant, your line. Depends on, you know, a lot of factors. But I would say, in my particular case, we got our ROI in like, I want to say like 6 months. Wow. Like here's an extreme example. My hood system was $300,000, which is 3 times as much as a typical hood system. That sounds like a lot, but realize that it also worked with our geothermal systems, a lot of heat recovery, all this fancy stuff that we don't have time to go into. We were projected to pay it off in 14 months. Because of how efficient we ran our kitchen, we paid it off in 9 months. $300,000 of an investment through energy efficiency alone, we paid it off in 9 months. That's what we're talking about here.
Another quick question. Will cast iron scratch the surface of induction stoves? Do they need to be coated?
You can get them coated. It wouldn't hurt. I would say, again, it depends on how rough you are with it. That picture I showed, we used giant stock pots. We used tons of cast iron on there. There was barely a scratch on it. So I say go for it. Have fun with it.
Is there an efficient equivalent for electric ovens?
Oh, most new electric ovens coming out are most efficient. I spoke with a manufacturer recently who came out with a couple of years ago these combi ovens that you can cook, steam, all this stuff, and then cool down. And just by swapping out the old equipment for the new, it's a 5% efficiency gap right there. So it all depends.
Okay. Let me see. I skipped a question. Does anybody know the position about San Diego Gas and Electric in induction cooking? Are they encouraging it?
I don't. I haven't worked with Long Beach or LA County. But if anyone can connect me to them, that'd be great.
Charlie, do you know?
I'm not sure as well.
We'll try to find that out and post it. Anybody want to speak to a good source for induction compatible pans?
I would say, talk to your manufacturer. A lot of them already have partners or already make their own pans that go with it. So, like again, talking about CookTech, they have a line of their own pans. You can just purchase that one-stop shop and be done with it.
Okay, well, we're up to an hour, so I think we're going to have to end this. I want to thank our speakers for participating. This was a very, very informative webinar. And I hope everybody's convinced that induction cooking is the way to go. And I hope that this helps the public policymakers feel that they can move forward with REACH codes that don't have to make an exception for gas cooking. And I want to thank everybody who's attended our webinars, and hope that you'll support the Center for Community Energy's continuing efforts to promote energy efficiency and electrification. You can find us on our website, centerforcommunityenergy.org. It's very straightforward. And you can make donations there or volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers. So with that, I will thank everyone, speakers as well as attendees, and wrap up the webinar. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.